A good thing that I thought of recently was it's okay to exist in the ordinary. Like that's where real life actually does exist. It doesn't exist on like Madison Square Garden stage. Like that's not life. That's not real life. That's only a minute for those people. Real life is every other hour. That's the ordinary. That's where real life exists. And we get to do something extraordinary in ordinary places. So we get to bring something that's extraordinary to an ordinary place. And I think there's so much beauty in that. My name is Mike Alessi. I'm a musician. I've been performing professionally since I was 15, 16 years old. I'm also in the band Dizzy After Midnight, and I run a guitar business called Village Music Room.
I appreciate you coming on. We have a long history back and forth. We've known each other since we were in elementary school. And one thing I've always admired from you is your go-getter personality in the sense of when we were 15, 16, and nobody had a job, you were the first person that was ever making money because you were a musician and you were going out and getting these gigs at 14, 15, 16 years old. And you were making some pretty decent money back then. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever when we were like, I was making like $8 an hour, or actually $7 an hour at the library. You were making a couple $100 in 3 hours at playing all these different places. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I've always admired it. I thought that was really cool. And here you are many years later, still doing the same thing. So I guess talk to me about the process of you've always been a musician. You've been playing since, I mean, forever. What was the process of you saying, hey, how can I monetize this? How can I turn this into a business? And deciding to go and play and turn it into what do you do now?
So I got started, it wasn't a very premeditated process. I really just got started by being obsessed with the guitar, getting really into that, being bit by the bug, as I'd say, right? And I remember when you were the same age, you were the same way. You know, we always in school had a guitar in our hands whenever we could. And I would take the guitar after school or on weekends to downtown Northport and play with my case open. And I really had no goal. I had nothing but I wanted to make enough money that I can buy me and my friends pizza and candy from Harbor Trading and then have a sleepover with my pals and just be a teenage kid. Until one day, the owner of the wine cellar at the time came out and asked me to play his bar and told me that he would pay me, I think at the time it was like $25 an hour, which $75 for 3 hours, we both know. But at the time,
But at 15 years
14,
old,
15 years
yeah,
old, yeah,
when everybody else is making $7 an hour.
I only got $75 on my birthday or something from like my aunt, like that wasn't the only. So it was a really, really cool introduction to that world that I realized after a couple more opportunities coming from that, playing at that bar, having people ask me to play their events, play their restaurants. Um, I realized I was underselling myself by taking $75 for 3 hours at numerous places, and then I doubled that to 150, and then obviously that's turns into now the going rate's about 300. But it wasn't as much of as a build the airplane and then get inside it and fly it, as much as we're flying and we got to build this thing before we hit the ground type of vibe, which sometimes does feel like the music business, but it definitely keeps you on your toes, and it's never a dull day. Every gig is different. Every crowd is different. So I'm very, very grateful to have that type of job and be able to make my passion my living.
Mm.
And
Let's talk back to you playing in Northport in the Village with your case open. I've done that a handful of times. I found it so vulnerable, I guess you could say. Like I just felt, but you just never seemed to care, and you're just like, I'm just gonna play. And I was so always self conscious of doing it. Like, who's gonna see me? What are they gonna think? And blah 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 blah. In fact, we played together down in Northport and stuff. And it's just funny. And I'm curious, like, how has that has that mentality always been the case? It's like I have something I want to share, and or I just want to play music, or like how does it? How do you even get there?
I would say it wasn't so much as I wanted to share this with the world. It wasn't so much as I want to show off or I want attention, as much as it's a beautiful day out. I love being downtown. I really want to play my guitar and sing these songs. And it was at the time when it was so special, right? Every song that you sang and played felt different than when we were just starting out. And there were the amount of the rush you'd get from just picking up the guitar and playing and getting it right, right? Because back then it was like once every 10 times maybe you got it right. And then there just happened to be people. And I kind of why I still try to think of it that way. Believe it or not, I actually get more anxiety now performing sometimes than I did when I was 15 years old. And I think possibly those thoughts of, well, what will people think? Or what if What if I'm not playing to the room properly? Or what if my voice goes out? Or what if I'm too, all those what ifs, they weren't in my head as a kid. So I think I'm grateful that I had that kind of carefree mindset starting off, and I just wanted to play. It didn't matter if there was people, it didn't matter if there was nobody. I just wanted to play.
Talk to me about playing to the room. How do you define that?
I guess every gig, I try to walk in to wherever I'm at and to play to the room. I like to think of the crowd as a defense in the NFL, let's say football. I would love equating things to football, and I'm the quarterback. I'm on the offense, and I'm reading the defense. So I'm reading the crowd, and they're not against me, of course, but to win, I got to get them to. I don't need all the attention. I definitely don't need clapping after every song. Sometimes I hate that when it's a certain venue. But just to know, I'm not taking. I want to always add to the experience. I never want to take away. I'd either rather be neutral or additive. I never want to play at a volume that overwhelms a conversation. I don't want to play songs that are kind of annoying to some people. I don't want to do anything that's too abrasive, but I also don't want to do anything that's going to put anybody to sleep. So I try to read a room by gauging the age range, gauging, okay, so I'm playing Bob Seger, and I saw a couple people in the crowd look over and nod their heads. Okay, so now I know maybe it's safe to play a little Zeppelin, or maybe it's safe to try some Jim Croce. However, if I play, let's say that Bob Seger song and I get zero looks at me, then it's time to maybe move on from that genre and try Matchbox 20 or John Mayer, and just kind of keep swinging. And sometimes you get those gigs where you're not meant to necessarily do too much and you just play what you play. And as long as it's not abrasive or obnoxious, you did your job. And I always try to read, if I'm a patron in this restaurant or this bar, what am I looking for here? It's 6 o'clock at a bar on the water. I'm not looking to get crazy. I don't want to be up on my feet, and I don't want someone to be trying to do that with me. I'm trying to enjoy my time and enjoy the setting and enjoy the scenery. And if I notice that I like the music, that's great. So that's where, it's trying to identify time and place, because I do remember when I was a teenager and I didn't care about those things. There would be rooms that I would walk into, like a cafe at 4 p.m., and I would rip a guitar solo by Pink Floyd with full distortion and love it myself. But the a couple people would be pulling this, and those are the lessons that a 16, 17, 18-year-old has to learn to be able to continue to be a musician 20 and on. Uh, and I'm grateful that I kept having those opportunities after maybe some mistakes that I made along the way.
Kind of pivoting, I'm curious because I have my own personal answer to this. I'm curious your answer. Do you, when you go to a restaurant, enjoy being around live music or avoid live music?
I'm kind of an old grouch. I sometimes, no, not sometimes, I usually avoid it, because it's not that I don't like it as much as it feels, um, it's hard for me to maybe not critique it, or to just, or to be present. So it's either, if it's something that I'm like frustrated that I'm like, this guy's getting, because it's like, someone at your position, your job, your salary, it feels like. So like any other job, if you're working in an office and someone has the same job as you, same position as you, and they're getting paid the same as you, but you're like, I do my job much better than this person. It can kind of affect you. However, if you really enjoy it, then whoever I'm with is not getting my attention, and I'm just the person playing. So I do try to, and there's times too where it's just, you want to be, it feels like you're at work again,
Mm,
because it's the same setting. There's the same thing going on, and I have this feeling in me of like, I have to do this or I have to do that, or if I hear feedback in the mic, I get so much anxiety because
mm.
it's just that. So sometimes I try to remove myself from, or I just find myself not going out very much. But also, it's a very social job. So every time I go to work, I'm in a bar, I'm in a restaurant, I'm at a very social setting, social venue. So when I do have time off, I find myself looking for peace and quiet, versus going out, getting a drink, going to see live music. I much more prefer Let's watch Seinfeld under
Yeah.
a blanket with some tea. So I'm a little bit of an old man.
I couldn't agree more, man. My wife knows when we go to a restaurant, we sit as far as we can from the live music, just because for the exact reasons you said. It's just a distraction to me. I critique it too much. I'm distracted. I can't focus for every reason. Whether I like it, don't like it. Whether I think I could do better. Whether I'm like, why did he get the gig and I didn't?
Yes.
And there's a million things that go through my head, and I actually don't even like hearing it. I'm like, please actually be quiet. You know?
And
I often always find that they're too loud though too, personally. And that's something I've always been conscious is because I don't like to have to raise my voice in a restaurant ever. So like I've always been really conscious of trying to be that find that happy medium where like and one of the things I used to call it was wallpaper music. You're just there and you're not supposed to you're to add to the restaurant but not take away from anything. And I find that so many musicians take away from the restaurant because they're making it about them and not the person's experience.
I completely agree. And there's definitely times where I'm sure I've been too loud myself, and I try to do the same of being like, hold on a minute. If
Yeah.
I was now, granted, sometimes a restaurant will put you on top of a table. Like I'll play here and there'll be a table here. And I know that table's gonna hate me and there's nothing I can do about it. It's not my fault. They're not gonna know that, but I just gotta do what I have to do because there's a table 50 feet that way that's going, play more Dave,
Yeah.
play more this. And I have to entertain them as well.
There are so many stories, man, that in the music industry that we have that so many other industries don't have. Just like the things that can go there are so many things that can go wrong in the job that I feel like every just kind of like so I play at my church and we play modern like style music like electric guitars drums like it's not like the Catholic style where we're doing hymns and stuff like so it's like you're playing in a band, right? Electric guitars, acoustic guitars, keys, like everything, right? And you can tell the difference between the people that have played for a living or played out and the people that only play at church because like you can see when something goes wrong. Now, granted, as you play these people at the church, they get significantly more calloused, I guess, in a good way. Something goes wrong, I'm like, or they're like, oh, I can't hear myself in the in ears, and I'm like, bro, you know how many gigs I've played where the only speaker I was coming through was 400 feet away, and I didn't have in ears, I didn't have a PA on the floor, like. I could go with any, how many things I left the capo at home or a string, like so many things. Like I only bring one cable, and now I'm like, well, how do I make it work with my mic and my guitar at the same time? Like, so many things can go wrong that I'm like, anything can happen, and I'm like, it is what it is. It's all good. So I'm curious, tell me some of those stories because it's not like we sit in an office where like, oh, the worst thing that happens is we run out of paper and the fax machine.
I mean, how many times have you ever cut your finger at a gig?
Oh yeah,
So,
it's so many things. Or
so
like under the nail, you cut your nails too short.
oh
That's
yeah.
the
So right
worst.
now I've got a crazy story. I got a messed up thumb and I got this right here where I was playing a venue with my band, big venue where there's, you know, about 100 people packed right in front of you and, people right there at the front of the stage. And I'm playing hard, it's one of those gigs where everyone's looking at you. So there is no so that's the difference between solo gigs and those band gigs is where solo gig, like you said, wallpaper. You're not supposed to be, hey, look at me. Band gig, you got to be you got to be a widescreen TV. You
Hmm.
got to be the entertainment. And I think I was just strumming too hard or just not paying attention, and all of a sudden my hand feels wet, and the guitar feels a little wet, and I look down, and I am bleeding everywhere. And I'm looking at the people in the front, and they've got little droplets of me on them and everything. And we can cut this if you want. And I
No,
could
I
tell
want to keep hearing. No, please,
a
yeah, keep
much
going.
more PG story if you'd like. But that just happened where I was like, oh my
What
god.
did the people in the front row say?
They didn't know. I didn't say, hey, I'm bleeding on you. I just on break just wrapped it up real fast and got back to it. But I've had that type of stuff happen. I've seen fights. I've seen someone vomit on a floor. I've had people put bills down my pants, which is, it's funny as a kid, I remember thinking like it happened to me when I was like 17, 18, when I was like, young. And at the time I was like, haha, but now as like a 30-year-old guy, I'm like, that's so and the woman that done it that was not my age, type of thing. So there's definitely things that people think they can get away with. Um, And I've noticed a lot of the stories come from, and a lot of them tend to be negative because I think there is a energy with treating an entertainer as your entertainment no matter what. So it's not the music that I'm playing, it's just the entertainment, but your interaction with me now is also entertainment, where now you're gonna come up and try to sing, take the mic away from me. You're gonna come up and just get in my face and kind of hang on me and dance on me because now I'm part of your night with your friends. And it was like, hey, remember when I like, you know, went up to like, basically made myself a part of the musician's set, and it's not they're treating you as if you're an interactive entertainment when it's can you just respect what I'm doing and sit down, stay. And there's times like that where, there's stories from there. Um I've seen well, some of my favorite moments I think might be the little things that I see that are out of context. So are you ever like playing in like what almost feels like a window box or like yeah, a window box. Let's say downtown, a lot of times the wine cellar has a
Oh,
perfect
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
Skipper's Pub used to have a
Yeah,
perfect
yeah.
one. And I've seen people watching me through the window, walking into a stop sign, things like that, which is I've always felt guilty about. And like, oh God, it's my fault. I've seen car accidents, not big, just minor, not that I caused or anything like that, but just little things you're like, do I keep playing? With Dizzy gigs, we've actually seen people get hurt in the crowd, which is actually not great. We've seen that a couple times where we've had like 2 or 3 gigs with ambulances coming.
Wow.
That you feel a little bit of a responsibility for sometimes when you're realizing the crowd is drunk. My job is to entertain them. They want to get more hyped up. I'll hype them up, but then you realize, oh, something bad happened because they were drunk and we were playing Sex on Fire by Kings of Leon, and they all started jumping and going crazy, and a guy fell and cracked his head. So then I like on the way home, I'm like, should I have realized that they were too drunk? Should I think about what am I gonna play here and what happens when I play that song? Or do I just say it's their problem, their thing? And there's certain gigs where I can tell the crowd is too rowdy. The crowd is not understanding boundaries, whether it be themselves, the band, and you try to control uh outcomes by maybe controlling the set list a little bit and saying, okay, people go a little crazy for Mr. Brightside these days. I don't trust any of these people's coordination right now. I don't know if I'm going to play it.
Mhm.
I think I'm going to stick with, something that'll get them to 8, but if I get them to 10, we might be in trouble. And that just comes with years and years of experience and getting older. At 22, 23, it'd be like, whoa, that was so crazy. We played so hard that people went nuts in the crowd and someone accidentally got hurt. But now as at 30, you start to kind of see like, I never want to see that again. So I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that that doesn't really happen. And I don't mind sacrificing like a kick-ass song to make sure that, the guy that can't really stand and hasn't been able to stand all night doesn't end up in a bad spot. But yeah, man, loads of stories. I got a little off track there. I apologize.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's all good. How do you manage the nightlife lifestyle, I guess? Your job doesn't usually start until 8 o'clock when most people are getting ready for bed at 8 o'clock. How do you manage that?
It's really been all I've known. Um, and it's tough where, it's been all I've known, and I had to learn how to manage it, and I didn't manage it well. Like we were speaking before, like I just lost 50 pounds because of how much weight I put on. I would say because of this sort of lifestyle where I don't like to eat before a gig. I don't like to sing with any food in my stomach. I like to kind of keep the tank empty so I'm hungry up there in a sense. And you get out of a gig and it's midnight. What's open? Wendy's, McDonald's, 7-Eleven. So after about 10 years of doing it, I'd say the wrong way or a way that wasn't the most beneficial, I really had to sit down more recently and say, okay, I can't do the thing where I don't eat before gigs anymore because then I eat like a hippopotamus the minute the gig's over. And I can't sleep until 2 p.m. anymore because that's terrible for my mental health. So you figure out your own schedule and you have to really learn how you operate. There's no like I can't tell you how I do it, and then you can't follow exactly what I do and guarantee that it's going to work for you because everyone's different. Everyone has.
What's your current schedule?
I wake up every day around 7 a.m. My girlfriend has a real people job in the financial district, and she's up every day, 7, and I'm usually with her. So I get up, we get her to work. I get back. I eat right around then is when I try to eat around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. First meal take it a little easy. And then let's say if it's a Friday, um, I try to make sure that I'm being intelligent about my energy. So if I'm awake, wide awake at 9 a.m. and I have a gig at 9 p.m., I have to realize, all right, 12 hours from now, I got to be on. So I'm gonna have to take a nap, or I'm gonna have to not spend myself. Maybe I shouldn't go golf. Maybe I shouldn't hit the gym too hard today. And maybe it's a good idea to kind of keep it cool and keep it easy. Because I do find for myself, switching gears can be a little difficult. So it's hard for me to go from running errands or doing recreational activities and then got to go to the gig because I'm in like I would call it real life Mike mode,
Hmm.
where I'm a different Mike.
Mm,
I'm a different person during that. When I'm with my girlfriend, when I'm with
mm.
my friends, when I got to go play a gig, I have to lock into music Mike, and it does take a little time for me. So I do find I need 3 hours before the gig starts. So let's say it's 6 p.m., 6 p.m. Till the gig, no plans, no food, water like crazy, maybe a Cliff Bar. Try not to exert and just start transitioning into the gig mode. So that way, when I get there, because there's been so many gigs. Have you ever gotten to a gig, you plug in, and then you're like, wait a minute, I gotta what am I gonna do? Like you're looking at the guitar, like, I know how to play this. Like you just forget a little bit of who you are.
Yeah, or I haven't played. In full disclosure, I haven't played in a long time, like out like that. But there have been so many memories of like doing such a terrible job at that, and like I'm like in full recreational Jacob mode, and like until I plug in the guitar, and now I'm
Mhm.
like I just went from 0 to 60, and now I'm like, or 60 to 0, and I have to completely shift gears, and that's a hard transition. Then everything floods your mind of, like, then the insecurities will flood your mind, and,
Oh,
like, am I too loud?
yep.
Do they like this? Do they like me? Am I good at this job? Like, should I just quit? Like, everything, like, when you and then with the invention of technology, like, we started playing when, like, you couldn't get messages on your iPhone or on your
Right.
iPad. Like I don't know if you play with, like, when I played, I was always amazed how you just memorized everything. I don't know if you still do or not.
Well, I don't get it all right. I still don't have like a screen in front of me, but I definitely mess up.
But I always had a screen in front of me. Just it was just the way my brain worked. I had such a hard time remembering this stuff. And um, now you can get text messages on your iPad and all this stuff. And so now I'm like, I was getting texts from my wife and this and that. Or I'd be in fights with my wife, and
Been
like
there.
getting the like, and I'm like, how do I sing this love song when I'm like pretty pissed right now? Like,
That's
like,
too, dude. I
and
got
trying to
broken up
transition
with
at.
at a gig. I got the text at a gig and I finished it. And I just was like, that's that. And went back to banana pancakes.
Yeah.
Like it was just, um, I would say for me though, because like we said, everyone's different. Like for me, I would be too distracted with the screen. I would be too locked in. And
Mm.
if I make a mistake when I have a screen in front of me, I'm going to stutter for longer. Versus if I make a mistake and I'm kind of bushwhacking my own trail, I kind of go, oh, shoot, okay, I'm just going to repeat something that rhymes. Or like, I'm just going to come up with a rhyme right now. Or I'm going to go back to the first verse and just do the first verse twice. And
Hmm.
if anybody
Nobody gets
notices,
it.
they're a square. Like, I just kind of go into like big whoop.
Yeah.
But if there's something in front of me that is the path and I stray off of it, I have a bit of a panic attack. Then I try to find my way back. And then if I'm not back right on time, like, it's a little too much for me. Also, if I had the screen with text messages popping up, I'd be like, oh, like, oh, hey, dude. Like just
Yeah.
go. So I think it's important for me in my performances to be like unplugged. Because even the phone sometimes I'll see it light up and it's like, no, you gotta be
It's
pretending to be John Mayer right
it's
now.
so funny, and maybe this is, I don't know, like, it's definitely not the best trait, but it's funny how you can totally disconnect from the job, and, like, people are like, "Wow," like, "Oh, wow, you're so like, what do you like, you so into the song," and meanwhile, I'm like, "Yeah, I was thinking about actually, what my plans were to tomorrow." Like, I'm just totally not even there anymore, and, like, I'm thinking, "Oh, yeah, I forgot that I had to wake up at this time and go to the gym," and meanwhile, I'm singing whatever, like, free fall, like, and people are like, "Wow, that's," I'm like, "Oh, yeah, thanks. Oh, I forgot I was here," you know?
The autopilot can be
Yeah, oh,
real.
yeah, especially these songs at this point, the songs that we've been playing for 15 years. I mean, we played Free Fallin' 16,
Yeah.
18 years ago in Northport, and now we're still playing that same song. Like, the autopilot is
Oh
crazy.
yeah. Oh, for sure. And it is funny, yeah, people, I saw you closed your eyes and you were just so into it. And sometimes I'd be like, I closed my eyes because I'm honestly pretty tired. And like it is one of those jobs too where we discuss the differences. You can't show up and keep your
Mm,
head down.
yeah.
You can't kind of show up and just sit there at the desk for the day and like kind of do
Take a
the
chill
bare
day.
minimum.
Yeah.
You got to be Mr. Music. You got to be Mr. Rock and Roll now. So it can be when you don't have the energy and you're not in the zone to be Mr. Performer. You have to fake it and just make it. And those gigs sometimes feel like every song is an hour. And like you'll be like, all right, I just played like 6 songs, and you'll be like, that was only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
How was
Yeah.
that only 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Like, but then there's gigs that you only feel like you played 6 songs, and you look at the clock and you're like, that was 2 hours. Okay, I got to take my break.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really is. It can be a blessing and a curse for sure. And back to your question about how do I manage like that nightlife, um, and just this very peculiar schedule. For me, it is super important uh, that I don't really partake in the nightlife. Like a lot of people have this stereotype of musicians, and many guys can do this, guys and girls can do this, and that's great. If you can play a gig, get drunk at the gig, hang out after the gig, and drink and party, and then wake up the next day and be able to do a gig, you've won the lottery of metabolisms and natural energy. I don't drink. I don't stick around. I show up, I plug in, I play. I pack the car, and I'm out.
Oh, that was the worst part of the job,
That's
man. Unloading and loading every day was
I got a cart recently, only recently, 15 years of this. I finally got a wagon. I love it. The
yeah.
wagon is
6 trips to the car, it's pouring rain. Like
people don't hold the door.
yeah.
When people don't hold the door, I've started to say something. I used to just now I go. I'll say this. It would have been sick if you held that door, just like that, because I'll be carrying like a
The
PA system in
PA.
one arm, 2 guitars in this arm, and I have to use my foot to catch like the door that some guy just let like slam on me. Yeah, no, I definitely. But you know what? It's a good workout. The
I guess you could see it like that. I'm curious, one of the things that I always struggled with was feeling like I was living life on the outside, watching like I always one of the things that I had a hard time with is I always saw these people that were at their party, at their wedding, at their whatever, and I'm like, I'd much rather be at the party than performing for the party, and I'm just curious your perspective. Like, do you get numb to that, or do you still feel that way?
there's times, and it doesn't. I wouldn't say that like, oh, I used to and now I don't. It definitely depends on the event. Um, so that yes, there's like times like weddings. Like let's say if you're going through it in your relationship or out of a relationship or something, and then you get booked for a wedding and you're playing the wedding and it's all about love. And that those gigs can be kind of tough when you're like, if your love life isn't doing well or your relationship isn't doing well, and then you're playing for something like that. Or um, vice versa, if it's you haven't been able to see your friends in a long time because you've been gigging a lot, or just life is in the way, and you're playing something that's a social event where there's a group of friends and they kind of remind you of you and your
Mhm.
friends, and it is like kind of being like in a bubble.
Mm,
Because you are, it's a social job, but you're by yourself at it. There's no coworker unless I'm with my band, but there is no familiar face that you see every day. And it's not a familiar space usually, especially the private events, right? So it can be very, you drive to the gig by yourself, you get to the gig, you're kind of by yourself, but in a sea of people, and then you go home by yourself. So those gigs, I definitely can feel like that lonely in a crowd of a million people vibe.
mm.
But then there's also the times when it's like, I'll look at these people, or if I'm a little tired by the end of it, or if I'm just not in that social energy spot, or if sometimes you play a gig and you know that the crowd isn't your cup of tea in the sense of you wouldn't be socially with these people usually, and you're like, I'm so happy I get to leave,
Mm.
and because you could see the people who are like, I can't leave, like, and you're like, I can,
Yeah,
pretty in 15 minutes I can, and
yeah.
so it really is, you know hit or miss sometimes, or totally gig dependent on how those emotions can be, or how the energy of, do I feel lonely, do I feel like I'm missing out, getting the FOMO, or do I feel like the luckiest person in this room right now?
Yeah.
So, every gig is different for sure, but I definitely relate very much.
I want to talk about the future in the sense of like one of the things I think so many musicians don't think about is music as a business and the fact of like planning for taxes, planning for your future, planning for I mean not necessarily retirement, but even retirement, but like how do you plan in a way or how do you structure your life as a musician as a business?
That's the really great question, and structuring the yeah, like my music career as a business has been a constant struggle of mine. I'll be honest. I'm a type B person, type B personality all the way. I can get very disciplined and I can get very neurotic about things, but only if it's something I'm passionate about. So I've learned that about myself, and I've learned how can I find passion in the things that I am avoidant with. So organization, I'm a little avoidant about. So look, the future sometimes, if I'm a little stressed about it, I can be avoidant. So then I try to figure out, well, how can I find a way to make passion inject into this? And that's what I've been trying to do as of recently is structure. Super important. This job has none of it. There is no you need to. There's nobody telling you what your daily schedule is. It's not like you get to the office at 9 and you have a meeting at at 10:30, and then you have this at this time, and then this. It's yeah, you have the gig from 9 to 12, but you have to structure getting yourself ready for that mentally, physically. You have to structure. Okay, so if I have a gig from 9 to 12 at night in Northport on Friday night, but Saturday morning I have a let's say like a bat mitzvah luncheon in Westchester County at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., that takes planning. I can't just take things one thing at a time. I have to think, okay, like tonight I have to make sure that I'm back here. My energy's okay so I can go to sleep and be at that next gig ready to go. And finding that it's really being your own boss and holding yourself accountable is really important. People hear you're your own boss. That's awesome. I hate my boss. And it's well, if I don't sort of hate the part of me that's making me be accountable, then I'm not being accountable enough because I need to be my own boss. And everyone quote unquote hates it. So I need to kind of work on that part of me that's more disciplined and doesn't see this as all such free time, so much freedom, and say actually it's unstructured time that I need to kind of figure out how to structure.
And people don't realize that being a musician is so much more than just being a musician. Like, it's not anymore, at least particularly, it's not or even in our shoes, it's not just going out and playing the gig from 9 to 12. It's learning the music, it's fixing your gear, it's promoting yourself, it's trying to get the gig. People don't realize how much work actually goes into getting the gigs, and, granted, you might be have been doing this for long enough that it might be a lot of word of mouth at this point, but building that I mean, I have a distinct memory. It was, like, 2014, and I drove from Northport to Port Jefferson and stopped at every single restaurant that I passed and asked for the manager or asked for a card, like, left a card for the manager. And maybe 1 or 2 things came out of it, but, like, first of all, I don't know if I had the balls to do that now, and second of all, like, that was, like how long did that take and how much it just I don't know. I don't know how I did it, like, but people don't realize that all that is the culmination of how many cold calls, cold messages I did, um, to try to get 1 gig.
I yeah, I mean, I just recently because I'm trying to transition a little bit out of the bar public space. I'm still gonna do it. Still want to be doing that. But if I'm playing 4 to 5 gigs a week and they're all public gigs, uh, the cash flow from that is a little lower than if I did 3 to 4 gigs and one of them's even just one is a private gig. And recently, I probably reached out to 100 like event planners
Oh,
from
wow.
Long Island, New York City, Connecticut, New Jersey. I got one phone call out of that. Not even a gig out of it. However, just recently I had a pretty big venue in Patchogue reach out to me, and I didn't even knock on their door. I've knocked on their door a bunch in the past, and I just this year, I think was the first year out of like 6 years in a row of just every November, December, reaching out and putting in the band submission form on their website, um, and doing whatever I could, emailing, calling, getting nothing, and then they knocked on my door, and it was like, what? And I now I'm booked there every Tuesday for the summer, which is like huge for me. So it is funny that like sometimes it's you grind, you grind, you grind, you grind 1 week. And it was literally just 2 weeks ago I did that. And then last week was when I got the phone call from something completely different.
Mhm.
So sometimes the universe does work out in that way, but it is something where, if you're, I think for many years I coasted on the talent that I was definitely blessed with that I'd never take for granted. Like I understand that like this is a business where like this is one of those things where it's you got it or you don't. If you're playing baseball in little league and you can't hit the ball, you're not going to be in the MLB. It doesn't matter. If you're a musician and you pick up the guitar and start singing and you're brutal for a long time, it's going to be. So I'm very lucky, and I think that for a long time I coasted on that a little too much, and I was not a good businessman. I don't think I was good with promoting. I still don't think I'm that good with social media and promoting and using my business brain. Um, and you have to kind of find that balance. You have to say, okay, like I am both of these things. I am my own promoter, I'm my manager, I am my agent, and I am the performer. I'm the sound guy, I'm the guitar tech, and
The
it does
roadie.
feel a little overwhelming, but there is also so because it's a lot of responsibility. But as Spider-Man's uncle said, great power comes great responsibility, but it's also great responsibility comes great power. It's both ways. So the more responsibilities you take on in your life, the more power you have in the end. And I am trying to work on that balance because it is, like you said, like so hard.
Mm,
And I think you do an incredible job of
thank
all of
you.
it. You as a songwriter, as a promoter, as a content creator, you've always I feel like are swinging over the plate and hitting, making contact with the ball, which is really really
I
awesome.
appreciate that. But I think that so much of that swing of the plate is all the I think for all the home runs that people might see that I've done, they don't see the thousands and thousands of balls that I've missed at the plate and the hundreds of thousands of balls that I've practiced out at practice, and I very much appreciate your compliment. Thank you very much. But even just to expand on that for people that haven't seen, like, yeah, they might see the fact that I have the YouTube black and it's 100,000 subscribers or whatever, but they don't see the fact that I posted 7,000 videos. Like it's just a consistent grind. And I think that it's so easy for people just to compare. And I don't take it lightly. Of course, I'm really incredibly grateful, but at the same time, like, while I admit that I am proud of the work ethic I have, I almost was like, well, why do I have and why doesn't somebody else? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, thank you God, because I didn't work to have my work ethic. Like, it just kind of was handed to me, like the same way I think that talent, like natural talent, is handed to somebody else. I did not have natural talent in music.
I think you totally did.
There's no bro. I was a
I
horrible
remember
singer. No way.
I remember watching you on the guitar at a young age
I
and
practiced
seeing.
my face off.
I do know that
No
true. That's
way.
true.
There are some people that it's totally innate, and I think you were one of those people for no question. I think that I mean, granted, you practice and stuff a ton, but you just always had it, and I think that it just came pretty I'm assuming it came from what I see on the outside. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
I
Um,
think I was obsessed, and it was easy for me to keep working at it because it never felt like work when I was younger. So obsessed with music, and I mean obsessed. Like there was never a time that I didn't have an earphone in, even in school. Teacher was talking, I had always an earphone running up my sleeve to my hand, and I would go like this. Every class. I didn't do any homework in high school. I went home, I played my guitar, and I sang. And the obsession always was I have to sound like the person. And um, along with this arrogance of if I can't now, if I don't sound like Adam Levine now, that's just now. It's just for now. I will. Not yet. I will. It's like when I was 10 years old, I was like, okay, I'm 4'10" now, but I will be taller. Now, of course, you get to a point, but like I just had this confidence and this arrogance of being like, not yet, but that does not mean I can't. Just not yet. Um, and I think when we're younger, we had that confidence is awesome, and then something happens. in your 20s, and like you said, like you wouldn't have the gall to like go to every restaurant between Northport and Port Jeff now, but you did it, as a kid, which is like, of course you could now, and but it's something where that so yeah, no, I agree that definitely natural talent is a big part of it, but also getting bit by the bug is like, I think that's the most important part. And you can tell who's bitten and who's not. Like, I remember when we were in guitar and piano class, I believe, right? And seeing, like, we both like the guitar in our hands, and there was not like, oh, I look cool with the guitar, take a picture with me with the guitar, and I can play, and it's like I could play three chords, but I can play. We were both kind of just like, don't talk to me. I gotta do this thing now. And it was just immersed in the world
Yeah.
and not caring about how it looked, not caring about the fact that you could. It was
Yeah.
about building
I
it.
remember going to my lunch period to the piano rooms and just playing the piano
Yeah.
just because I loved, at that time I was really into the piano more than the guitar.
Yes, yes, I do. Yeah, you were really, yeah. I remember
So
you taught me a lot of things on the piano.
it's just funny how, yeah, I guess just bit by the bug,
I
you
think you
know.
taught me how to play for release, and I still remember how to play it. That's like the only thing I can play on piano,
Yeah,
but that's really awesome.
that's funny. It's just, yeah, it's one of those things, man. It's a really interesting job, and I don't really know. It's just such an interesting world, the music industry. I'm curious how you reconcile. I think this might answer a lot of questions for a lot of musicians out there. I'm curious how you reconcile with the fact that you've been doing this for so long, and I think that so many musicians, their goal is to play like Madison Square Garden, be like this famous musician and stuff. And how do you reconcile with the fact that you're still working towards that, or it hasn't happened yet, or in the timeline that you expected? Because it was very hard for me to reconcile with that, like very hard. And I'm curious how you deal with that.
Yeah, this is real too. I recently was just talking to Drew, my girlfriend, about this. Where for a long time I kept that feeling on the back burner,
Mm,
in a sense of like whenever like I'd have that voice of like, so you're still playing the wine cellar, huh? Same place you've been playing since you were 15, now you're 30. Like that voice of like, you're still a bar musician. I would just be like, shut up.
mm,
Didn't that wasn't the worst thing to do, but that boils over eventually. And when I think I did find myself playing 5 gigs a week, 6 gigs a week in the summer, and some from gigs like dive bars that were not saying the wine cellar, but like the wine cellar's not a dive bar. I don't want to name the places that but the dive bars that I didn't feel appreciation at, to then places like the Inn at Long Beach or Ulysses in New York City, where the crowd is screaming for one more song for me and my band, and we, 2 huge Wednesday I'm playing the dive bar, Saturday I'm playing a place where people are screaming and singing along to the songs that I wrote. But I was getting like so much depression after some of those gigs. And I realized it was that boiling over thing where I had to kind of sit down with myself and talk to myself. And for me, I had to kind of talk to the 13-year-old kid that's still in me, who picked up the guitar for the first time, who had all these ideas, who had all these goals, and who thought by 30, this Takamine is going to be like in a rock and roll Hall of Famer, I'm going to be at least be in a casino or hard rock casino case or something. And no, it's actually under my bed. But and to sit with them and say, I basically in my head had to kind of sit down with myself, with that young version of myself, and say, it's not your fault.
mm.
You did try really hard. You still try really hard. And I know that I would be like 13-year-old me watching me perform now would be so proud. And I just have to kind of like tell myself and tell that version of me, like, it's okay that we're not where we thought we were. And we may never be in that place, or that's all. It's not. And like understanding what is the meaning of success to me. What is the meaning of making it? And when you're 13, that idea is walking out on stage, Madison Square Garden, seeing my friends and family in the front row. Everyone in the stadium knows my name and every lyric to my song. And I think about that. And if I could snap my fingers and actually have that be my reality, and that's every night, and I got to go across the country all the time, or snap my fingers and I have free time, I'm able to do what I do now still.
Mm.
I have a wife and kids. Would I rather walk out into my living room with my guitar to my kids chanting "Daddy," or walk out to Madison Square Garden stage to a bunch of strangers chanting my name? And I can honestly say now, I prefer the former. I think I'm gonna prefer the former. I think I'm gonna have a fuller cup from the former. And that's a really difficult journey to go through, to say like this. Well, if you start it with, well, this is the staircase to fame and the staircase to mega success, and then you realize, well, that staircase, it is not up to who's walking up it to see how far they go up it, because it's a lottery. It is like having the talent is just buying a ticket to the lottery.
Mm.
That's it. After that, it's all up to fate and so many other things, whether you become the next big thing, or even you don't even have to be a big thing, just something where, I understand, like I would have loved to maybe, and still would love to do something where I'm able to make a very comfortable living just doing music and be able to not worry ever about money or something, which is far from, like, you don't have to be a millionaire to have that. But I also realize, like once you take that responsibility off your chest a little bit and say, like, this isn't like, it's not my fault. Yes, I could have done this or this or this or this, but, and I can convince myself that if I had done this or that, then I would be in this better place. But why do I want to, what's so wrong with the place I'm in now? And how many versions of me, whether it be from the past or in an alternate universe, would be begging to be where I'm at now and
Mm.
to just take the power in that? And to just, feel grateful for where you're at and what you have. That's my best way of reconciling with it. But there's still times, of course, where, you see someone that's famous and you're like, what? Like, you're kind of like, this person is lip syncing at the Super Bowl, or like this person is, uh, this song blew up. And you're like, really? And you have to kind of just understand, like, well, that's a little bit of jealousy. It's a little bit of my ego. And what the world finds, the standards of the world, of like the standards of the general populace of what they like and what people determine as good, is so manipulated by bigger powers that be, that just fund something that they think is a good brand, that they think is very sellable, versus it's what everyone likes. There's a lot of things that people quote unquote like because this is what's hot right now, and then they have this pressure of like, well, then I like it. And it's like, okay, do you actually?
Mm.
Like, or is it just what everyone's listening to because it's on everything and being thrown everywhere and you're being told this is good, this is good. Um, and so once I kind of just realized, let me make sure that I'm playing what I like to hear and what I like, what I'm proud of. And a good thing that I thought of recently was, it's okay to exist in the ordinary. Like that's where real life actually does exist. It doesn't exist on like Madison Square Garden stage. It doesn't, like, that's not life. That's not real life. That's only a minute for those people. Real life is every other hour. That's the ordinary. That's where real life exists. And we get to do something extraordinary, which I think when we perform, but I know every time I watch you perform, it feels extraordinary and in ordinary places. So we get to bring something that's extraordinary to an ordinary place. And I think there's so much beauty in that. Being able to say, to show up to a place like a wine bar or just an Italian restaurant and do something that's pretty extraordinary with our talent, and be able to turn heads in this place where they didn't expect that was going to happen that night. They didn't expect to see something like you that night. And I think I'd rather have people tell me, "What are you doing here?" than have all the fame and popularity and have people be like, "Why is he here?" And that, is beautiful in itself. And I've learned to take a lot more comfort and power in being an ordinary guy that's got a little something extraordinary up his sleeve that he can can bust out when he needs.
Yeah, man, that was a really incredible explanation of
Oh,
that.
thank
No,
you.
I mean, because to piggyback on what you said, reconciling with where you thought you were going to be and where you are, and having a hard time being okay with where you are, but also feeling guilty because you have so much at the same time, and then still wanting more. It took me 2 solid years of like really like searching, almost slightly depressed, like really having a hard time of like this is not what I wanted, but I also am so grateful at the same time. It's like it was really, really hard reconciling, and kind of similar to what you said is just acceptance of like, I heard something that acceptance is not apathy in the sense of like you can accept your situation while still working towards changing it. It's not acceptance is not just like, okay, I guess this is the way life is and just that's it. It's no, I accept that this is where I am now, but this isn't also where I have to stay and this isn't where I'm going to be forever. Um and it's just so I'm not playing much music anymore just because of the reality of my life. I couldn't afford to. With owning a house and kids and this, it just wasn't I couldn't I it was no longer sustainable in my life. And I could have and I could have chosen to say, "Hey," I could have chosen my desires over the desires of like of the benefit of my family, but that would have cost me something and it wasn't worth the cost.
Right.
And I have enough faith to be like, I don't know what tomorrow brings. Maybe it can bring that, but maybe it won't. But I trust that God has a plan, and there's nothing like what is me floundering around trying to get, it is what it is, and it doesn't mean that tomorrow might not bring exactly what I'm hoping for, but I'm also learning to let go of what I'm hoping for because in the end, we're all going to die and it really doesn't matter.
That's a really I know. It's we are all gonna die. And but it's something where, like you just said, like, well, tomorrow I might get what I'm hoping for, but you might find out that if you get it, that you don't want it.
I mean, look,
You
it could
never
be, it's
know.
very easy to say from the other side, like, how many musicians are miserable and like don't like the life they have, and how many of them overdose and like,
I mean, all of my heroes almost. Like,
yeah,
it's
and the fact that like I don't know many musicians around in our circles that have overdosed,
right. Or that
like
are,
or super super miserable because they're not living that in the extreme, and then they don't have all that pressure and they can be with their family and they
because
it's a trade off. Everything's a trade off.
if you get to the point where, like, I was always like, "Oh, I want to be like the next John Mayer." As a teenager, I would freaking arrogantly say things like, "I'm the next John Mayer." Meanwhile, dude, could not even play a blues solo at that age. Like, I was not focusing on guitar the way I should have been if I wanted to be John Mayer. Um, and but now I realize I'm like, the amount of pressure that comes with being a star like that. Because if you decide, like right now, if I say I got to take a break, I'm getting burnt out, I'm getting pre-gig anxiety, I'm getting post-gig depression. This is not good. I need a break for a month. I can do that without drastically affecting anybody else's life.
Mm,
But if any of our heroes do that, how many people are losing their job? How many people depend on those guys getting on stage and playing that night? Because if they cancel, if they say, I'm not doing this anymore, it's not just them.
mm.
Everybody that's involved with them loses a paycheck, loses a job. So that's a huge, that's just one of the many pressures that's on them. And then also, like we were talking about the ordinary, there's no more ordinary. That's gone. And I think there is something really, really beautiful about being able to say, like, you know, I perform in the ordinary spaces, I live in the ordinary. But I have the confidence in myself, and I know the fact that if I'm able to do this for a living, that what I'm doing in it, if you're doing anything for a living, you do it to an extraordinary level, probably. It doesn't matter if you're a musician or an investment banker. You're still good at what you do, great at what you do. If you're just ordinary at it, you wouldn't really. So to be able to bring extraordinary vibes or energy to something that's usually very ordinary, there is something that's there that no one can take that away from us.
Yeah, I like that.
You know,
I like that. Well, in wrapping it up, I want to know a question that I like to ask everybody is, what's one thing that you know now in your career that you wish you knew when you first started out? Like, what would you tell that 13-year-old Mike?
the fun is the most important part. That when the fun stops, something is wrong,
Mm,
and you have to find a way to make it fun again.
yeah, I want to piggyback on that. I completely agree with that. And that's, I completely. I mean, even just with the YouTube stuff that I was doing, it hit a point where it was no longer fun to be. It felt like a 9 to 5, and people were like, "Whoa, you gotta do YouTube all day. That's cool as hell." I'm like, it's I actually
No,
don't enjoy it anymore
so much
because.
pressure.
But the point of the story, but like actually, I want to pivot. That's not even what I was going to say. What I was going to say is I heard a quote, actually from the owner of the Whale's Tale. I don't. Um, he said on the podcast that essentially be careful with how much success that you want, because if you hit a certain level of success, you will no longer be able to do the things that made you successful, which are likely the things that you enjoyed. So, for example, owning a restaurant, hypothetically, like, oh, he's out there with the restaurants. I mean, with the he's out there with the patrons. He's, maybe picking the menu, blah, 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 whatever the case may be. Um, when he first starts out, as the thing grows significantly, and say he really enjoyed that, you're no longer in that role. Your role changes, and you might not be able to do the things you enjoy. Yeah, you're making more money. You have a better sense of that, but like, what are you sacrificing all the things that you actually enjoyed? So is that worth it? It's just an interesting trade off. So the fun is very, very important.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having
Always a
me.
pleasure.
Always,
And the
man.
last thing I'll say with is, yesterday I got a message on my phone saying, it's been 13 years since you and I played in the high school Wells. Do you remember that?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
And speaking of losing the 50 pounds, I was 140 pounds in that photo. So I was 40 to 50 pounds lighter. I was like,
Well,
where
if
did
you were
all of me go?
140 pounds now, we would need to get you to the hospital. You can't be
I was
140 now.
no, that's what I'm saying. I'm not 100. I'm
Yeah.
40 pounds heavier than that now. And it was just seeing that photo. It was
Wow.
13 years ago yesterday. It was crazy.
That is 13 years is too. That doesn't feel like 13 years ago, does it?
Oh man. Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.